Tour junkies.
What's going on, golf addicts? Welcome to the Players Championship, the 50th Players Championship, DFS DraftKings preview. Myself, Pat Perry. We're going to have Pat Mayo joining us here in just a moment. Pat, you doing good, buddy? You ready to go?
I am ready to go. I'm excited. Always get a little chuckle when I get to see that graphic right before we start here. It's just fantastic. And I can't wait to be on with Mayo. I don't remember the last time I was on with Mayo, to be honest, TV.
It might have been the
really
season-long draft last year on his show.
I guess it was. But I meant like on a DFS, focus show. I feel like it was. I remember doing one. You were out of town, and I was like literally just before we had the studios, and we didn't do it, on YouTube. And I think I was like on my bed or something, just recording with Mayo.
Nice. Well, maybe we'll revisit that with him when he comes on here in just a second. Before we do have to get in some announcements. We've got a big contest going. You could win 2 tickets to Augusta National on Tuesday for the Masters, possibly to join me and Pat walking the beloved Masters grounds. All you got to do is join the Discord. If you're already in the Discord, congratulations. If you're not, you have to join and be an annual member, paying annual subscriber to the Discord. That will get you automatically entered into the drawing, which we will do here in a couple of weeks. And one of you will get 2 tickets. You can either come to the Masters yourself and enjoy it with us, or you could do what you want with the tickets. If you need to give them to somebody, you can give them to somebody. So we had a couple extra tickets. We're pumped about it, trying to spread some love, but you got to be in the Discord. It's the best golf betting community around. Obviously, we're doing great things in the Discord every single week. Our boy Byron, the Model Maniac, in there dropping his showdown info. We got guests joining us on the Wednesday night live chats for signature events and majors. Me and Pat doing the Wednesday night live chat every single week. Usually I give my first look thoughts on Monday morning on that show. Exclusive bets come out in the Discord. And of course, just good old fashioned fun community laughter, sweating things out together, tilting tournaments together. It is the best golf community you can get on. So check it out. And you get to get those, you get a chance to win the Masters tickets. In addition to that, all of our intel today will be discussed, at least me and Pat Perry's intel today. I'm going to have to figure out how to, I guess I'll call him Mayo. Because I got 2 Pats. I'm going to be calling on Pat here. All of our info is going to be coming to you straight from betthenumbergolf.com, our new favorite golf betting data and analytics software and system. You can check it out. Link in the description. Code TJ gets you $5 off the monthly membership, $50 off the annual membership. But if you are a Discord paying member, another big reason to be a paying Discord member, you get an additional massive discount if you just simply DM myself or Pat on Discord and let us know you'd like a one-time unique code to bet the number. We'll happily give you that. And it's the biggest discount available on planet Earth to bet the number. Tons of new stuff coming out on that site every month. And the live betting stuff is tremendous. The people behind the scenes at Bet the Number are tremendous, making very good systems, models, all that good stuff. And we're going to talk about models here in just a little bit, because I know Pat's got something he wants to say about his model. Don't say it yet, Pat. Don't say it yet.
I won't. Don't worry.
He's got something. He's got something he wants to say that I'm excited for the people to hear about. What else is going on? So we're going to have Mayo on. We're going to go through every range with Mayo. We've got a 5K range again this week. I'm excited about. We're going to talk about Scheffler up there at 12 something. And we're going to talk through where we think the chalk going to be, some cash picks, our pivot plays, fades, all that good stuff. We're going to have a good time with Pat Mayo. I'm pumped about that. Before we do, let's button up the Arnold Palmer. You did have Scotty Scheffler just absolutely run away with it. And really, other than Scotty, he was the only chalk that ran away with it. In typical API Bay Hill fashion, if you were chalk, which the 10 highest owned players on the week, the only one to really pay off his price was Scotty Scheffler. Statistically, a percentage of their points to their price, Eric Van Rooyen was the only other one to come close. Everybody else bombed. Rory, Minwoo, Cam Young, Ludwig, Hovland, Adam Scott, Fitzpatrick, Keegan Bradley. All of those guys did not pay off their price. So it was a great week to fade the chalk, as it usually is in DFS. You had a bunch of kind of mid-tier players creep up and do some good stuff. I mean, Wyndham Clark was only 6% owned at 8,500. Willie Z almost cracked that top 10 at 8,900. He obviously paid off nicely. Sahith, Brennan Todd, under 2% owned at $6,400. He was in the top 10 DK's point scorers. Your perfect lineup would have been Scheffler, Clark, Lowry, Thigala, Henley, Todd. Who knew the Todd father would be in the Bay Hill?
I never would have thought that.
You would have scored 584 points. You would have spent all your salary except about $200, which is rare. And it's usually a lot more than that. And total ownership was around 60%. Scotty did his thing. Like, any final thoughts on that? We can obviously talk about guys' performances at APIs. We're breaking down the players, but anything else you'd like to add to the API DFS?
No, I think that, Scotty did what he does. Everybody's been saying, he gets the putter rolling, and look out. It's almost, not even fair for some of these guys, but and they can't compete really. But yeah, there were some interesting names that ended up top. I thought Wyndham Clark, what he did and where his ownership was a little bit surprising. I mean, people just tend to not really get on Clark that much, even though he's been playing really well. He just won a few weeks ago. So when you said the ownership at 6%, that kind of jarred me a little bit, because I didn't think it was quite that low. But it's good to see Willie Z doing what he's doing. I had no idea until just 30 seconds ago that the Todd father was even in the top 10. I don't even recall seeing him on the television.
He's like a phantom even when he's doing well. And we like Brendan. We've talked to Brendan a lot. We just talked to him at the Waste Management. Yet you can't see him. You know what I mean? Maybe we need to get you together with him at the Players and have you guys kind of connect. Maybe you need a deeper connection.
Maybe we do. It's like my writing. I can't even see my writing and understand my writing sometimes. I just don't understand the Todd father. But anyway, good tournament, and ready to see what happens this week, because there's going to be carnage this week, and there's going to be certainly a lot of chalk.
Yeah,
that does not do well this week for sure.
Well, yeah, what a transition there, Pat. You teed me up nicely. Before we bring Mayo on, I want to just look back at the last couple years at the Players Championship in terms of DFS. Talk through a couple things. I dropped a bunch more of this information in the Discord under the research channel yesterday, but want to just highlight a couple things. The last 2 years at the Players Championship, 2023 and 22, there were as many players in the perfect lineup at 9K or above as there were in the 6K range. If you add them all together, you definitely have seen, like you said, the chalk bomb here in 2023. In 2023, you had a little better ratio in terms of chalk payoff. About 5 of the top 10 highest owned pretty much paid off their price. So it was a little more chalky. Only 2 guys missed the cut, and 4 finished inside the top 15 in points scored. So that was better. Obviously, Scotty being one of them. In 2022, it was chaos, and part of that had to do with the weather situation. The year Cam Smith won, it was nuts. In 2022, the top 10 highest owned players, 6 missed the cut. None of them finished in the top 15, and none returned on their price ownership investment at all. It was absolute total carnage. Now, I think early weather reports right now would say probably going to see a year that looks more like last year. It looks pretty mild here at TPC Sawgrass this week. Don't forget, Tour Junkies will be there doing the media thing tomorrow and Wednesday. Going to be hanging out Thursday. Got a special treat for Jake Knapp on Thursday, so be on the lookout for a small gaggle of just middle-aged men obsessing over a 29-year-old glistening bicep former bouncer ball striking machine. And Jake Knapp will be doing that on Thursday. That should be a good time. But yeah, it's been the tale of two different weeks the last couple of years at TPC Sawgrass. I think we're going to see one more like last year, but even like last year when it's perfect conditions, the chalk can definitely bomb here. So you got to be able to don't get too committed. Don't get too locked into your guy, right, Pat?
No, you never want to get married to your guy, especially this week. So, yeah, I think it's, and I'm excited too. Like, it doesn't look like the weather's going to be a factor at all, at least at this point. So, I think that could be a good thing. So we'll see.
All right. I can't wait. We're ready to bring him in. Let's bring in the man, the GOAT, the guy that inspired us to get started in all this stuff. He inspired a lot of people, maybe everybody who's doing this these days. Our friend Pat Mayo joins us now live from the Pat Mayo studio, the Pat Mayo Experience studio, now with Underdog. I want to talk about that in a little bit. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. It's really unfortunate that I inspired all of these people to get into the industry where I was like the only person and doing really well. And then everyone just got better than I was. And, it's been a real kick in the teeth.
Now, Mr. Mayo, sir, that
Mm.
is not true. This 2024 year of our Lord in your DFS experience, right? Because you've been on a little bit of a PGA DFS heater.
Yeah, listen, you play long enough and you do 7 years of losing and everything just clicks over a 3-month period. Although my results from the Arnold Palmer Invitational will tell you I'm probably back on the losing train.
It was a tough one. Pat, this is going to be tough because I got both Pat. Is this the first time all three of us have been on a show by ourselves, like not just on like a draft or something together?
Yeah, maybe because I every time that I've filled in for you guys, like I think Pat and I have done shows together. You and I have done shows together. So yeah, just call me Mayo. That will make things much easier.
Mayo, Pat Perry was reminiscing about maybe the last time you guys may have done something together, and it sounds kind of kinky.
Well, listen, I was trying to think of the last time we were on a show, just you and I doing it together, because I think it was before the days of YouTube when we had to be on camera and whatever else. And a lot of times, I would just do the show from my bed. I would be recording from my bed. And I feel like the last time I was on with you, I was just laying in my bed recording with Mayo. You would have not known that because we weren't on camera. But, we've laid in bed together, Mayo.
Well, what else were you thinking about?
Was this at the DFS Open or something in a few years?
No, I didn't. We didn't make it to the DFS.
I didn't know if maybe you snuck out.
No, I don't think so. But I always like being on with you, other Pat.
I appreciate that. And there's a reason that I come on to this show because I like being on it.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. Actually, before we get into it, dude, we are big time underdog fans. And we're going to promote people to doing the underdog majors. And we've been talking about the majors best ball drafts. We've really pumped hard the season-long best ball drafts. They've got their weekly stuff as well. But you just landed a new relationship with Underdog, a big relationship with Underdog. And we want to congratulate you for that and have you talk that up. And now the weekly Mayo PME Open is on Underdog. You want to pump that for us?
Yeah, so we're going to roll out a series of different contests week to week, but the first one that we wanted to start with was the major season best ball. So again, code Mayo at Underdog. Sorry to take away from your affiliates. I'm going to try to get some of mine of my own, but the Pat Mayo Open is up there. It's already 75% full. So if you want to jump into those drafts, you should probably do that. We might add more as it goes along, depending on when this one ends up filling, but it's a much lower rake than all of the other best ball major tournaments. It's $25 to play. It's 6 max entries. And you can find it up on Underdog right now. So if this goes well, the faster we can fill it, the bigger and less rake it's going to be the next time around for whatever tournament that is. But it just shows like the people are willing to jump on to Underdog, try out some new game formats. And that's really what I'm excited about with this partnership. Like, it's not like I'm not doing the other things that I've always done. I'm going to talk about betting. I'm going to talk about DraftKings, but now giving me another game format as a way to, maybe this is one that I'm going to be good at. Probably not going to be one that I'm good at, but maybe it is. Who knows? Maybe I'll figure out the right strategy for it. So it's fun to dig in. You guys know when you do the same thing week over week for a decade plus, having something new to do is really exciting.
To 100%. And I love how Underdog continues to innovate, continues to, to improve the product, make it do different than what everybody else in the industry is doing. Like you said, really a big fan of the stuff over there on Underdog. We talk about it every week in the Discord too. So pumped to see you over there, pumped to see the PME Open doing some new things over there. So that'll be a good time. I will make sure I reserve my entries before that fills, and everybody else should do that too. Code Mayo. But we're here to talk DraftKings DFS this week, Pat.
Can I give you one more thing? Maybe the easiest way to win on Underdog?
Yeah.
So in the description of my shows, you just hit the description, find the link, or in the Mayo Media newsletter on Substack. That's completely free. There's a link in there for a survey. It's a 15-second survey. If you put in your Underdog handle and fill out the 15-second survey, you are eligible to win 5 of $1,000 prizes. So it's a $5,000 giveaway, and the winners will be announced right after the conclusion of the Players Championship this week. So takes you 15 seconds, could win $1,000. Why not do it?
Dude, I'm really good at doing stuff in 15 seconds, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are. So this should be easy. This should be home game. All right, let's talk DraftKings DFS. We want to go through each range, maybe make some guesses on some chalk where that could land, how some of that could shake out. We've got the 5K price range back out on DraftKings. Pumped about that. Talk about maybe our favorite pivot plays, maybe a cash lineup thought or two, a guy we're going to fade in each range. In the 5K range, we're going to do a snake draft, Mayo. That's what we've been doing here in the bottom ranges every week for some time now. We just do a snake draft with us, see if we can come together and get some nice cheap plays down there in that range. But let's start up top, 9K and above, pretty deep range. You've got Scotty up top, and that's the first question. Is how chalky is Scotty going to be? Defending champ at the Players when he really ran away with it last year at the Players, looking as good as he's looked, as good as he's been looking for quite some time now, winning API handily with the mallet in hand, and now the putter come into play. Like, I guess the biggest question is, at what point will Scotty have to be? I'll throw it to you first, Mayo. I won't throw every question to you first, but at this one, at what point ownership is Scotty going to have to get to for you to bounce, or is it not quite working that way for you yet? You want to wait and see?
That's not really how I've been playing this year. Like, Tambo's been kind of talking me through this, that he said, like, people will make the conversation of, we'll use Scotty as the example. If he gets to like 40% ownership, even in the big GPPs this week on DraftKings, like, we got to make the decision. Are you 100% Scotty or 0% Scotty? He's like, you can play whatever amount of Scotty that you want. It's just that if you play him, just make sure your lineups are slightly different than everyone else's. Don't have Scotty and then have the two next chalkiest guys in the lineups with him. That's one where you'd have to get a bit more off the board. So when we start, trying to galvanize all the ownership for the week. So it's going to be Scotty. He's almost $13,000. So you're just racking it through in your mind. It's like, well, who in the low sevens is going to be super chalky? Well, if you just kind of scroll down, like EVR, Griot, Gim probably gets some love here. So does Nick Taylor.
Yep.
Those sorts of guys are probably going to be, and that's just first look at the pricing that has recently come out. Those guys are going to be somewhat popular. So it's probably not best to go Scotty and two of those guys right away. So if you can find a different construction for some of your Scheffler builds, he's going to be perfectly fine to use. I'm going to use Scotty. I'm not going to lock him in 100%, but I'll probably build, let's say, 50 lineups this week, and I'll wait for the weather draws to come out. Although, as you mentioned, it doesn't look all that bad. Although the winners have really come from the AM wave on Thursday, so we can keep that in mind. I think it's 12 of the past 14 or 13 of the past 15, including Scheffler last year. So that's just some stuff that I want to look at. I'll have all that information in my newsletter, but I'll probably build like 25 with Scotty in the pool, which will probably generate him in like 18 to 20 of those lineups. And then I'll take him out and generate like another 25 without him in it. And then, I'll have my adequate exposure, probably matching the field, make sure some of the guys that I include in the Scheffler builds are a bit off the beaten path, and put in some rules for the lineups that I come in, just to make sure that those lineups are somewhat unique. And then try to go the other way, because it's so funny how the narrative can shift on someone just like that. And Scotty gains with his putter, new putter. Oh, he gained over 4 strokes putting, and he ran away with an event. Okay, that's great. But he also just lost 51 weeks in a row. Let's not forget that. Like, if he puts himself out of winning this tournament this week, is that going to surprise anyone? It wouldn't surprise me.
Pat, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think it's so interesting how the narrative can change so quickly with golfers. Another one's Willie Z. Everybody wants to talk about Willie Z and how he's got a terrible putter, yet he's actually gained in his last few events. And just because it looks funny doesn't mean that he's not a great putter. And he's been an excellent ball striker, and now he's back all of a sudden. But a few weeks ago, we probably would, or, a couple months ago, we were, after the Hero, we were wanting to get, just like wait on Willie Z for another year or two. We didn't know what was going to happen. And here we have Willie Z back again. His odds are even shorter for the Masters. I mean, they're down to like 18-1 right now. But I think when you're looking at like lineup builds this week, if you're taking Scheffler, it's just like we saw last week when DB went over what we saw with the API. You had a guy like Scheffler who was extremely chalky, and then you had a lot of players in there in the top 10 that were not chalky, like a Wyndham Clark, who I do like this week too. Like Brendan Todd. I couldn't even believe that he somehow ended up in the top 10. I didn't even realize it. These guys that you can, like you were saying, Mayo, that you can build in these lineups and still only leave $200 on the table and have Scheffler in your lineup. But that's probably what we're going to see at the Players. You have a lot of carnage typically. And it's not going to be this year because of the weather, but this course can beat these guys up. So to me, I think that's the way I would play it. If I'm going to have Scheffler, it may not be 100%, but then I'm just going to try to drop down into that 7K range and start there after Scheffler and figure out where I can get a little bit of differentiation.
Yeah, like if you take Scheffler as your first guy in DB, it's 12-8. You're left with around $7,500 left per player. And I'm pretty sure that we could go into those mid sevens and be like, oh yeah, I mean, who isn't betting Tom Hoagie and playing Tom Hoagie this week?
Right.
Everyone. Okay, let's click on Tom Hoagie. Easy game. Who else is everyone going to go to, do you think? Do you think it's going to be Bez? Is it going to be...
I was surprised you said Grillo because I had him kind of marked as a possible pivot, but if you're already saying that too, that may mean he's more chalky than I thought. I had Hoagie, Grillo. I think Mitchell could be a little sneaky chalk, EVR sneaky chalk. And there's guys around there to pivot, like you said.
Yeah, like Jager's down there. I like Jager. I'm guessing that like Gim will get a lot of love.
I think Gim is going to get a ton of love.
So let's just say those three, just to start off with, because then you're back up to 7,500. So you have Scheffler, Hoagie, and Gim. I would guess at this point of time, before we get too deep into what the ownership is going to be like a pretty common start for the builds.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tambo's on his 10-year anniversary this week. So he's in Bahamas. So he's off the show. Kicked him off the show this week. It's me and Raza trying to build things out on Wednesday on my show. And that's probably, we try to build what we think is going to be the most common lineup. And I can see that one coming in. But there's also going to be someone sub 6,500 that everyone just starts to gravitate towards. And DB, it might be your guy Novak Nation here at 64.
I'm thinking so. I mean, seeing a little bit of chatter on Twitter, X, whatever, about him the last couple of days. It's hard to ignore the iron play, and that's what everybody's zeroing in on here. It is going to be chalk Novak season. That's going to be tough to watch. But I mean, that's what I was going to say too. In the 6K and 5K range, especially, which you're probably going to need to get into if you're going to play Scheffler at a high clip. There are plenty of other options. Gim is going to be the more popular one. I think Novak's going to be popular. Nick Taylor, as you mentioned. There are a lot of other options you can get to, and are basically the same guy in these ranges. So I think, you guys seem like you're fine being average with the field, or maybe even slightly less than average with the field on Scotty. I'm not a good DFS player. I play with my heart and my gut, and I want 120% Scotty this week. Like I am so bought into, any signs of life from this man's putter. And, I was digging into a breakdown on X today about it's not just the putter. His setup looks so different from this time a year ago or whatever. Like I am very much in on Scotty, and I kind of want all of it, but I probably won't have 100% Scotty ownership, but that's how my dumb brain's working. Who are the other guys in this range that we think are going to get some love? I think Willie Z is going to be pretty popular. And I think thinking through this helps guys kind of understand, all right, well, I need to maybe start narrowing down the chalk that I want this exposure to, and start, maybe decommitting from guys that when pricing first rolled out, I was extremely committed to because they're going to get a lot of chatter. I think Willie Z's one. I'm interested to see about the, Pat mentioned Wyndham Clark. Will Windy C, as he's affectionately called on X, will he get kind of the ownership respect at this point, do you think, Pat Perry, after, winning another signature event at Pebble Beach? A kind of a less than driver event too, similar to TPC Sawgrass, and then having a great week last week at API. Do you think he's finally going to get the bump? Because he was 6% owned last week.
I think he'll get a little bit of a bump. I think, but I don't see him getting over like 10%. I just don't see that. I think it's just the way folks are with Wyndham, and then you look at the top of this board and the guys that are around him. Like I think, unfortunately, I would love for Hideki not to be chalk, but I think he's going to be a little bit of chalk, just the way what we've seen with Hideki the last few weeks. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that go to him that may come off of Wyndham. I think you'll probably have some folks, like you said, with Willie Z. He'll be a little bit chalky right there. So I still think Wyndham kind of gets squeezed out just by some of the players that are right here around him. But that makes me want to play him even more. I mean, I think he is going to have, he's a decent pivot option in this range, in my mind.
I would guess that he ends up coming in sort of as a middling type of like ownership. Like he and Homa, I would expect to be pretty close to each other because it's not so much about like
just
perception.
about to mention Homa. Just
Yeah,
about
is it a perception thing with him? Like he'll be less than Hideki, he'll be less than Zalatoris, but he'll be way higher owned than Cantlay just because of all the pricing and how this all shakes out. So like looking 9,000 and above, like that range, Scheffler, everyone's playing. Justin Thomas, everyone is playing. Will Zalatoris, everyone is playing. Shane Lowry, everyone is playing. Those are like the 4 guys right now, earlier on in the week, that just your eyes go to at these prices. So when that happens, who are the secondary guys? And once you can figure out the secondary guys, then you can figure out, oh, people are actually not playing any of these other ones. So like Xander is going to get some love. Xander always gets some love. Hideki, who you mentioned, I think he'll be he'll be more than Wyndham Clark, but Clark's on that next level down with like Homa, Wyndham Clark. I think Hovland will be right around those guys. Sam Burns will be a little bit higher. And then you get into like, people won't use Cantlay this week. People won't use Rory this week. People are not going to use Spieth this week. Like those are the 3, and maybe even Morikawa and Ludwig as well. Like those 5, I do think come in substantially lower than everyone else.
So out of those 5, Mayo, who are you most? Who do you lean to the most so far?
Ludwig.
Really?
I mean, look at his less than driver courses. These short courses is where he's actually done all of his damage.
Yeah, Sea Island, Pebble.
TPC Deer Run last year played really well at the Wyndham, played really well at Sanderson Farms. You just, in your mind, it's like, well, this guy punishes it off the tee. How could he not dominate? And he played well at Torrey Pines. I bet him to win last week, like thinking about this. And then after I started watching, I was like, you know what? Because you mentioned like less than driver course, and there is going to be some strategy to this, obviously, but he is one of the few players in the field that can go full hog with a driver and still be super accurate. So he should, on paper, punish every single par 5, and the difficult longer par 3s really shouldn't be a problem for him in a lot of ways, where he just doesn't have to use the same clubs as the rest of the field. Like he can use like a 7 iron on some of these, an 8 iron, where some guys are using 5 iron or some sort of like dinky hybrid.
I think I've kind of come around out of that bunch. I'm kind of coming around on Morikawa, and I think Pat Perry, didn't you? He was your fade, right?
He was my, for the season long bet. He was my fade, and Ludd was your fade. So,
and then last week in our season long bet for API, Morikawa was my fade, and so it paid off nicely for me. But I'm starting to like, God, I'm having PTSD from that first round of the Players last year that you mentioned, Pat, on our show yesterday, about how we were just completely bailing on Morikawa, and then he shot like 8 under on day 1. And I'm just starting to think through like, you know, maybe it's helpful that he didn't get his dick kicked in for 4 days at API, and he missed the cut. He didn't play well. His short game was really what killed him at API. I don't know. I'm intrigued. The 9 and almost 9.5 strokes gained on approach last year at TPC Sawgrass is enticing to me. And we know what kind of player he is long term. And I think if people are going to bounce off of him, I mean, over the long term, like if you have a course that doesn't really, really, really demand that you're long off the tee, but it really rewards precision iron play, that's Colin Morikawa. And so I'm starting to kind of get turned on to Morikawa here as the week has progressed. And I know it's early, but I was already looking at him yesterday.
Morikawa making you hot. I like it. But I mean, he's my guy, Morikawa. And between him and Tom Kim, the 2 guys that you would think like skill set wise, what this course demands, their skills kind of put them up a level, like with their top end skills, like how you think about them actually do elevate them to the Justin Thomas and, Xander, Cantlay, the guys that are consistently good week in and week out. Cause this is a course, as you mentioned, that you don't need to be the world's biggest bomber in order to excel here. And those are 2 guys like, well, they hit every fairway and they're deadly with their irons. Can they make a few putts? No, this is to be seen. They do 4 times a year. Can you be on them then? But I get my teeth kicked in at this tournament every single year because I always avoid the very obvious thing that sticks out. Do not take guys with bad form coming into this, because if you have and a few guys with bad form will play well, but if you do not have that form coming in, one bad shot, you're cooked. You're done. And I can't do it this time around. Same as Victor. I'm not playing Victor.
Yeah, but I would say like Morikawa's form coming in compared to Victor's is far better to me.
I mean, he's missed 2 or 4 cuts. And even at places like we would have thought Pebble Beach would have been a great spot for him. It wasn't. Genesis, he plays well every single year. He was 19th this year. Like he's not having, like, he had the spike approach week at Century, which was more in line with what he's used to. You know, over 5 strokes on approach. Before that, the Tour Championship, he wins the Zozo. That's a nice run through the swing. But since, like, losing strokes on approach from Morikawa, like, that's the one thing where he's never supposed to lose. And I know that's impossible to think about, but when you just go and look, like, he's reeling off 17 straight weeks of, like, not only being positive with his irons, but being like top 15% in the field. He's just nowhere near that right now. That's the thing that worries me the most.
He doesn't look like peak Morikawa, I'll give you that, or even approaching peak Morikawa. But I guess if I'm looking at his 5 events in 2024, he's gained strokes in more of them than he's lost. The ones he's lost, it's been slightly off. Whereas you look at Victor, he's had a couple weeks where it's like, because I'm with you on Victor. Like I'm out, kind of out on Victor. And I think we're going to have to, we're all going to have to get comfortable with seeing a possible low owned or lower in that range owned Hovland and decide if we're really that, ballsy enough to fade him. But to me, Morikawa's even his iron play, not just the results that he's had and the finishes that he's had is better than Victor, but even the iron play to me seems just closer. Like even the ones that he's lost strokes with the irons, it's been close. It's not like he's having horrible, God, what's wrong with him, type iron weeks. I don't know, Pat. What do you think about Morikawa and Hovland?
Well, between the two, I think I would probably go. I'd probably lean Kawa, but it is close. I mean, I think Hovland even said last week he has really been struggling with his swing. He's not where he's wanted to be. He even said that where he was last year when he won, the season-long title, that he wasn't quite to the point he was a couple of years before that. So I think he's been struggling a little bit with the swing. Now Victor's also one of those guys too that I think you get him on a course like this, could easily pop. But both of them I don't really like all that much. Now I do want to insert this into the discussion because I think if we're going to talk about form and we're going to mention a guy that we have not even talked about yet, Cam Young.
No, that's not where I thought you were going.
Why are we not going to, if we're going to talk about form and we need to take guys that are in good form heading into the Players?
Well, I was talking about guys that would actually help you win in DraftKings.
Well, I mean, I just did win a GPP with Cam Young in it at
yeah, see?
We finally met one. Okay, good.
The big thing, I mean, I'm with you. I never bet Cam Young outright. I like playing him on DraftKings, and I think he's a good price. And even when you kind of take a look, and you guys are there. So one thing that I noticed with the superintendent's report, that they actually officially changed the green type this year from Bermuda to POA because of the dormant strains. And you guys know way more about this stuff. Like, does that jibe with you? Like calling this POA, not Bermuda?
No, I think in the South you typically see them put in that POA, especially during the fall. And then as we get further in the warmer weather, the POA just kind of disappears, and the Bermuda is what's left over. And to me, if they're going to put that in that report that it's more POA, then they're seeing more POA on the green than they at this time of year, which I think is we see that all over the place. So in my mind, they're thinking, now is it going to play like POA of California POA? No, I don't think it does.
But will it play like Phoenix?
Yes, I think it's close.
I think that could be a better example.
And we'll get there tomorrow morning. Like we'll be able to. We're walking a couple practice rounds. Mayo, I want to just have you T's and P's for us right here. We might get to walk a practice round tomorrow with Siwoo. Just be prepared for that. But we've done this enough at TPC. Like I don't care if you told me that the grass was freaking pubic hair. I don't know. It rolls as pure as possible. That's all I know. There's no grain to it. There's no bumpiness to it. The tour has it absolutely groomed to perfection. It is immaculate. It is truly a very, what you see is what you get. There's no trick to it. There's no variance to it. It is a perfect condition. Now, if that's drastically different tomorrow when we lay eyes on it and we talk to our friends about it, our caddy friends, if they say, wow, no, this actually has a lot more POA in it, maybe that's different, but I'd be shocked if that's the case. The tour sets this thing up to be as perfect as it could possibly be.
Sure. And the point I was just trying to get to is that, like, instead of just searching all like Florida courses, are they going to be the same? Like, are the PGA National greens similar to these ones? Like APIs are like, do you find that the Bay Hill greens are a lot like the greens here? Because
No.
like just from seeing people putt on them, I would say no.
No, I think there's way more grain in the Bay Hill greens.
So like that's why I said Phoenix, and I also think like because you said like the California POA, I agree with you. The one that I wouldn't would be like
PGA West.
PGA West, which is actually Bermuda, but at the time of the year, it's not Bermuda. It's just covered with POA. That again, another place where just trying to find different comps of chipping, putting around some of these green surfaces. And, maybe Amex is kind of a look here. I mean, see, Wu has won both of them. Scheffler's played well. Zalatoris has actually putted well on those PGA West greens in the past. Just trying to make separate cases here. But I just thought that was very interesting because I'd never noticed it. They changed Bermuda to POA for both this week and next week at Valspar.
That's interesting.
But did not for Honda or API.
I got one more name in here I want to talk about, and I thought it's who Pat was going to bring up. But you talk about a guy not in his typical form, and sandwiched in between Scheffler, Justin Thomas, who Mayo, you said those were going to be two autumn. We both know like that's going to be two chalky names. But Rory McIlroy me and Pat talked about him on our betting show yesterday. What is your opinion? Is Rory broken right now?
I don't think so. No, I mean, he just led the field tee to green like 2 weeks ago. He won it. This is something that I've been talking about for a while. Like, no matter what Rory does, it's just not good enough. He could have won last week. It's like, well, who cares? He didn't win a major. It's like, well, the standard that everyone holds Rory to is kind of crazy. No, he is not peak Rory right now. Although he is far and away the best driver of the ball in the world right now, and it is not even close.
I guess that's the thing. Like, if Rory's not at his peak, we consider him broken. Like that's kind of where I consider him.
Yeah, and listen, he's not at his peak right now, but the driving is probably the best of his career right now, which is really interesting to think about. But the irons are just too shitty. You can't play him right now. I mean, you can play him because he's a great leverage play on DraftKings, but to bet him, even at 14-1 seems,
I saw him at 18-1 on the site this morning, which really had me wanting to click his name. But I think, look, you're right. He's been driving the ball fantastic. It's amazing to see that his irons have been so bad. Like, I would think the way he's driving it, that would make it easier to hit your irons because you're so much closer up to the green. But he has been struggling. And I don't know if – I feel like you were saying, Mayo, that you thought his ownership was going to be pretty low up there. I still think people are going to go in on Rory. And it's going to be – it won't be like, 20% levels like Scheffler. But I do think he'll be – in that 15 to 20 range.
I don't, unless he picks up steam because he's the very obvious guy who's getting squeezed throughout the week. And then on like Wednesday, he'll pick up steam again. I would guess he comes in max 8%.
Okay. Really? Would you rather play like, where do you think, would you rather play a 8 to 10% Rory or a 15% Xander?
I'd probably play Rory, but I just want to play Justin Thomas. I bet Justin Thomas to win. I think Justin Thomas wins.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, that's not good. If we all agree on like one guy, he's going to miss the cut.
I don't know, because yesterday on the betting show, Pat picked Justin Thomas, and I'm like, I don't remember being as close to on the fence, like truly on the fence, undecided on a guy like I am on Justin Thomas this week. Something doesn't feel right for me.
It's because he keeps gagging on back nines coming in, but you gag on back nines until you don't, and then when you don't, you win.
Yeah, 100%.
So with him, like, he's been outside of Riv, which was the last time that everyone like kind of collectively was on Justin Thomas, crazily enough, and he missed the cut and blew up all these DraftKings lineups. But what has he done so far this season that would lead you to believe that he's not sort of like trending towards the win?
Nah, yeah.
He sprayed the driver a little bit last week, but he still gained strokes off the tee. He knows what to do here at Sawgrass, obviously. I guess maybe it's maybe more of in DFS. Like, he would be a name up here because obviously in this range, you got 15, 16 guys in this 9K and above range. There's going to be some spread here, and there's going to be really good play. Obviously, they're all really good players. So there's going to be guys who are more comfortable for you to be like, all right, well, that's just too much, or it's not going to fit in how I'm building lineups, so I'm out on that guy. And you're going to feel better about those guys, some guys more than others, in doing that. I think JT would be a guy that I would probably feel the best about. Like, if he comes in pretty chalky. And I sit there and go, you know what? I don't really want to eat the chalk. I don't really want to have to work my lineups around having JT in there and knowing that I'm biting off 20 to 25% ownership on him. I'm good to bounce on him. That's kind of how I feel about him up here.
We'll see, because if he starts, it all depends on what the narrative surrounding him is. If everyone is talking him up on Monday and we agree like, oh, he's going to be like 25% of him, maybe he stays there, but he does seem like a guy that people don't trust enough to be backed. It's a very quick ascent back for Justin Thomas, the guy who missed the playoffs last year. People argued shouldn't have been on the Ryder Cup team. And now he's just, the third favorite in this field. And everyone's like, oh yeah, I want to bet that guy now. That's how well he's been playing. So just one little tweak here or there, and just the consistency has been there for him. And he's one of the few guys that possesses that one skill that matters the most. Like with Scheffler, the driving and irons are just out of this world good. And you can just rely on that spike every single week. So if he does get anything out of the putter, well, then he wins. And this is something that Feinberg and I talked about, of why maybe Xander and Cantlay don't win as often, especially in the bigger tournaments. When you're facing fields like this, Thomas's irons have the potential to be by far the best in this field when he gets hot. And that's why Morikawa has 2 majors as well. When his driving is good and it's accurate, doesn't need to be long, but when he can basically place the ball off the tee, his irons can be so good, it makes up for the rest of his game. And Thomas is like that, where you have guys like Cantlay and Xander who are just kind of good at everything, but they're not specialists anywhere. You would never say like, oh my God, Xander is just the best irons player in the world. It's like, no, he might be like the 15th best, but it's so very rare that he would be the best. He's more of just an overall type player. Skill sets to play really well at like US Opens or tough PGA championships. At courses like this, if you can't be the spike iron guy, you better be like Webb Simpson the year he won and just gain like 14 strokes putting.
Make everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get out of this range, Mayo, anybody else you want to talk about? Any points you want to make that we haven't got out? I want to make sure we get that before we move on to the AK range.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Ludwig for me. And I like Sam Burns a lot. And I'm probably going to end up betting Sam Burns and playing Sam Burns over Lowry. And I like Lowry a lot as well. And I look very much forward to Sam Burns being in contention on the back nine, maybe up 2 strokes, and watching him dump 3 in the water on 17.
Oh, yeah, he looked pretty rough yesterday, and he lost his composure a little bit too. That does not look good. It might suppress some of the Sam Burns steam after that. But so so Ludwig's your boy.
Yeah, I mean, as the pivot, like I'm not going to bet Ludwig here, but I just think that everyone is now off of him because they don't feel like this course is tailored to his skill set. But based on his results at courses that are kind of the same, I would say that it actually is.
Yeah. All right. Pat Perry. Anything else? Anybody else you want to talk about? Anything else you need to add?
No, I don't have much to add. The only thing I'll say is this: if I'm going with kind of one of my gut plays this week, Max Homa is the guy for me. I love JT, but my other bet was Max Homa outright. Just feel like this could be a really good week for Max, so I know I'll play a lot of them in DFS also.
So, just for reference here, I feel I made a like generic Scotty lineup. And I say, like, once you play Scotty, you have $7,500 left. As opposed to that, you can go Thomas, Burns, Ludwig if you wanted to, and you have $7,000 left for 3 spots. So it's a similar type of lineup if that's the route that you wanted to go.
Yeah. Interesting. I think I still might be 150% Scheffler.
So here's the lineup, by the way, that I was able to kind of construct that I think might be super chalky with Scheffler. So Scheffler, then you drop down to Hoagie and Novak and Gibb, and then you can put EVR into that lineup, and that gets you Henley.
Boy, I think Henley's going to get some love. I think that's pushing like 80% right there.
Or more.
Yeah. I did it quick in my head as you were talking through the guys, and I get to 80 easily there.
So if you go like Thomas, Burns, Ludwig, and we start thinking about like collective ownership percentage, let's say Thomas is 25%. I think that's like probably a fair number for him, like over under at this point of the week to guess it before we have more information. And then we go to Sam Burns. Sam Burns will be what, 15, maybe a little bit less potentially.
I was putting those 3 together at like 50.
Yeah, that's about where I would have them. Like Ludwig, anywhere between like 7 and 13, probably 10. So yeah, that there's 50% right there. And then like you have if you do have a punt play that you like, that's not Andrew Novak, all of a sudden you can kind of do whatever you want with this lineup.
Yeah. And I think there are definitely plays in there that are not Andrew Novak that you can still get plenty of. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Andrew Novak has already been hammered outright top top 20 as soon as MGM drops him. Like we're hammering Andrew Novak. But maybe a good fade in DFS. All right, let's get to this AK discussion. The first name I want to talk about is at the bottom. It's our sweet South Korean prince, Siwoo Kim. And Mayo, are you the guy just absolutely lit it up at API with the irons and then gave every stroke back putting? Are you intrigued at 8K?
Yeah.
Given
yes.
the deep dive,
yes, obviously.
To fuck around and find out with the putter on Siwoo.
Yeah, I mean, he lost almost 3 strokes putting here last year and still came 27th. The year that he won, and the reason that I ended up, I mean, I think Adon was on him pre-tournament at 500 to 1. I picked him up after 2 rounds because everyone was like, "Who the hell is Siwoo Kim?" And I went and looked at the numbers. I was like, "Man, this guy is ball striking it like electrically." And I think he had lost 3 strokes putting through 2 rounds, and he ended up gaining for the week like 1.2 or something like that. But just everything pointed to Siwoo just being great, and he's hitting every fairway. You know, the irons have been amazing here the past 2 years: 7.2, 8.1. You mentioned last week he gained 4.8 with his irons. It was the first time he had gained a bunch since Pebble Beach. Before that, he had gained at Sony. He's won at American Express. So these shorter die type courses, I mean, he's won here before. I don't like, listen, he lost 9 strokes putting. If he does that, he's probably going to miss the cut at the Players. That's really bad.
Yeah.
But for the other names in his range, like he hasn't missed a cut so far this season. Now he's playing some of these elevated events most of the time. So it's hard to miss cuts unless you're Matthew Fitzpatrick or Justin Thomas or Tommy Fleetwood, like guys do it. But just look at the other names around him. Like, I don't know. I like Ben An as much as the next guy, but would you really play Ben An over Siwoo at this course?
I mean, I think plenty of people will.
I think will for sure. But
would
you
own Siwoo for sure.
Like, would you play Tom Kim over Siwoo right now?
You brought up Tom Kim earlier. I have issue with Tom Kim because, like, I mean, Morikawa hasn't looked quite like Morikawa in a couple of ball striking weeks and metrics, but Tom Kim's off the tee game last week was horrible. Like, and I don't want to overreact too much to Bay Hill, but he had 46% of his fairways last week, 55th in the field. If Tom Kim is not hitting fairways, that is a major problem. I think Tom is my easy fade in this range.
So he was hammering. So I think it really depends. The longer the course, the worse his accuracy seems to get because it feels like he's trying to do too much with his driver. Like the last time that we saw him lose strokes was in Phoenix, a bit of a longer course. Before that, like last year at Memorial. So I agree with you. It's not quite there, and something was just off at Bay Hill. But that's no different than like, you see the driving prowess of Minwoo, and he just completely lost it at Bay Hill last year. And it's the most strokes he's ever lost off the tee. So when water is in play, it can make you look a lot worse than you are. And then once you get behind the 8 ball, you start pressing a little bit and things can go awry. And it can happen at the Players too. We see it all too often. But I would say his accuracy hasn't been the biggest thing out of the ordinary for him. It's just, he just doesn't seem all there across the page. Sungjae, I would say the same thing for. And weirdly enough, it's Sungjae who I have the most confidence in of all of these guys to like kind of pop this week, just because that's what he does. I mean, I would prefer Siwoo to Sungjae 100% here, just based on the way he's playing, the history, how he plays these type of courses, and his accuracy is something that tends to be sticky week to week. And that's why I think Tom Kim will be okay. I just worry about the rest of his game. But Sungjae's just, it feels like he's just lurking. Although my numbers say Tony Finau is good, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
My numbers say the same thing.
I don't get it.
I was actually just about to talk about numbers because, I was going to bring up, I made a model this week. Mayo, listen, I made a model. And a lot of times DB says that my models are broken. But one of the things I like to do when I do a model is I just look at the field first before the model. And then I think of the players that I really, you want your model to look good. Like you want your players that you really like to be high up in the model, obviously. But then I look at it and say, like, I really want this guy to suck in my model. And I hope he sucks in this model. And you know what? That's what I like about this 8K range is because here's the people that suck in my model. Tommy Fleetwood sucks in my model, so I don't want to play him. Okay. Tom Kim sucks in my model, so I don't want to play him. Siwoo is in the top 10 in my model. So I'm all about some Siwoo. Now, there's a few guys that are on the fence. Okay, there are a few guys that I'm not so sure about. Tony Finau is another one you just talked about, though, where he looks good in my model. So I'm thinking I might play him. Sung Jae does not look good, so I don't think I want to play him. But then there's guys like Corey Connors, who looks really good in my model, and I'm scared to play him. Fitzy's on the average line. He's kind of in the average, so I don't know. But anyway, that's just where I am, and this is where the model's really trying to help me out this week in the 8K range.
Well, Connors is interesting because I think he's a great DraftKings play, and I kind of think he's a terrible outright bet.
Oh, I couldn't stop myself yesterday at 80 though.
I mean, I bet him at API. But on the show, thank God you talked me out of it because I think Nick Taylor finished better than he did. You talked me at a top Canadian for Corey Connors on my show last week, and just do the simple top 20. What did he come? 18th.
18th. Yeah.
It wasn't quite hard enough for Connors to contend. And if you're saying that if this players looks a lot like last year's players, I legitimately don't think Connors can make enough putts to win a tournament.
Win it. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to shoot 16 under to have a chance against Scotty.
Yeah, but if this was that stupid year when Cam Smith won, or some of like the weird hard players that we've seen with a ton of wind, and all of a sudden the winning score is like -9, then I think Corey Connors is super live to win the event. But in something that eventually comes down to a putting and or chipping contest, because that's the thing that gets overlooked with Scheffler a lot last year in his win. Yes, like the putter was like break even, although he made every putt on Sunday. He chipped in like 5 times throughout the course of the week.
God, you have a great memory for this kind of stuff. When I listen to you, I'm always like, damn, how does Mayo remember that? I don't remember like yesterday, most of yesterday. And I don't do drugs.
Maybe you should start doing them.
Yeah.
Pat tells me like once a week. He's like, God dang it, your memory is so terrible. What were we talking about? Just kidding.
Well, okay, so let me ask you guys this. Pat, Theegala, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Because I can't wrap my mind around it. Like Fleetwood just line through. Finau line through. Fitzpatrick line through. Tom Kim line through. Minwoo line through. Like that's easy for me to do right now. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But Theegala is one I'm just like, I could see I might actually like him better at the Masters than I like him here, weirdly enough.
Well, I don't think that's weird. And one reason I don't think it's weird is because you can get a little squirrely and spray it off the tee at the Masters and take crazy lines and do what else, and I think but here's the correlation between where I like him at both places. He's got a lot of imagination around the greens. He typically, has a pretty good short game. Doesn't always show up in the stats, but he does have that imagination. And I think Theegala is a guy that, ball strikes it good enough where, he could certainly play this tournament and win. So I don't think now, do I think he wins? No, I don't know if he's a good outright bet, but I do think he could be a good play in DFS.
It's funny when you see his stuff, shorter courses tend to give him more problems unless he chips and putts the lights out. Like the only really good shorter course, I guess he came second at the RSM, which is, kind of a shorter par 72 type course, but he gained like 9 strokes between chipping and putting that week. He came 5th at Heritage last year. He gained 11 strokes between chipping and putting. Like, it's hard to bank on that. Like you'll need that from him in order to be up there. But when you see his driving numbers and his approach numbers at Torrey Pines or Riv or API, just they're a lot better than they are at the shorter courses, which I found really weird.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, it's the form. I mean, he's in good form. And if we're going to continue that theme of taking guys that are in good form heading into this week, I think he certainly fits that mold. So regardless of what, across the board, what all the stats say.
I guess for me, there's enough variance at TPC Sawgrass just inherently. And if the weather is going to be pretty mild, and so that's going to eliminate some obvious weather variance, but like the course is already inherently weird and shit gets weird. I would rather depend on the guy who's not dependent on the short game. If the weather were going to get biblical and crazy, then give me the guy like Cam Smith to me. So like for Theegala, I don't want to have to like count on him holding it together off the tee and with his irons and then possibly costing himself multiple shots on one swing because it's Sawgrass, which is just weird, right? It's hard to cost yourself. Even at Augusta, like it's hard to cost yourself 2 shots on a swing, with one swing. Here, that's not hard. So I would rather lean on. That's why I like guys like Tony Finau here. I actually, Mayo, I'm on the opposite side. Like, and Pat said that Finau was clicking for him in the model. He's 7th in my model, and
3rd in mine.
So see, like Lord knows, like I've I have a really hard time not playing Finau or betting Finau. I've lost so much money betting Finau over the years, but in DFS at least, he kind of has the Corey Connors vibe to me a little bit. Like, I just feel like in this tournament that's got so much at question and so much variance, like I at least feel like Finau gives me a solid floor, as good as one can have here, but also I do believe in the upside. Like, it doesn't happen as often as we would like it to happen, or as often as the models would tell you that it would happen, but it can happen. And if he's going to be somewhat ignored, I don't think he's going to be ignored, but like somewhat ignored, then I'm very interested in Finau.
All right, I think you may have sold me on it, because if we're going to play it as the one problem with guys like Connors and Finau, you're right. Like, the floor for them because of the ball striking is super high, and Tony's ball striking has been legitimately awesome,
Tremendous,
for the entire year. But maybe it's a like, you look at the models, and the models will tell you one thing, and then you actually watch the guy. He is missing 5-foot putts and not even sniffing the hole. Like, they're just the wrong break. He's missing them by like a foot to the outside. You're like, what are you doing, man? And like, the numbers will tell you he is like the worst putter on tour this year. Maybe he took the week off to fix that at API. I don't know why he didn't play API.
2 weeks off. Didn't play Cognizant either.
Like, maybe he's just been taking putting lessons for, like, and if he has and it works, or he switched putters or whatever, then yeah, he could be super live here. And if it does come in, like, for him, like, that's a legitimate ownership play to me. That if Finau is someone who's going to come in at like 7-8%, not 16% like he normally does, then I'll be on it.
Yeah.
But if not, like, Sungjae might legitimately be 4%. That I'd rather just roll the dice there.
Ooh, I don't think I can. I don't think I've seen enough out of Sungjae yet.
I haven't either, but it's not like Tony's putting up these great results.
No, but to me, it's better than Sungjae. I mean,
sure, but would you say, like, if the only reason to play these guys is ownership on DraftKings, would you say Finau at 4 times the ownership of Sungjae is where you want to be?
4 times? No,
yeah.
I don't know about that, but I thought you were saying like Finau around 8 to 10, Sungjae around 4 to 5.
Yeah, I'm seeing Finau probably around 12 to 16, Sungjae 4 to 8. So it depends on where they fall in that, obviously. It could be 2, it could be 4, but it's going to be Tony way over Sungjae.
Yeah, I mean, Tony's going to be over Sungjae. I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to be that would be a tougher case. Like, if it's 16 to 6 or 8, that would be tough. I might even just look elsewhere other than Sungjae, because I just don't want Sungjae right now.
So for me, Day, Henley, Siwoo, those are the guys in the 8Ks.
We haven't talked about Day, but I do like Day again this week.
All those guys. I mean, we just saw Siwoo bleed all the putts, but the accuracy, the ball striking, it feels like his floor at this course is really good. With Day and Henley to an extent too, Day's accuracy has been a lot better off the tee. It's still a bit wonky from time to time, but at these shorter courses, a bit better. But Day's one. We like to bet these losers who can't putt, but we know that Day can putt from time to time. That sometimes it's just nice to have this guy who will make a 14-foot par save, and Day just feels like he can survive a lot of the times. And if the irons get hot, he can pile it up quickly. And I don't think anyone's going to play Day.
And he's obviously got it figured out here at Sawgrass. Like, he's got a tremendous record here, previous champion. You trust the around the green play too, and the touch from Day. I actually don't mind that he, kind of finished irrelevant to some extent last week. I think he was a fairly popular play last week. So I don't mind. I like Day more than Henley personally. Pat, what do you think?
I'd probably go to Henley between those two, but it's close. It's close for me. I feel like Henley is one of those two that, and Day, I guess, in some way, that where you just plug them in your lineup, you feel like it's going to be a pretty safe one. Now, whenever we think that what happens, they, have a 10 or something. But again, I think, like Fleetwood did last week. But I think that, for me, I just feel a little better with Henley, but it is close for sure.
Now, typically we don't dive a whole lot into cash games and 50-50 and double up lineups here, but we do talk about cash plays in these ranges. Mayo, if you going through the 8K and up range, how would you, as of Monday afternoon, like to start a cash lineup if you were going to build one from guys in this range?
Well, I'm going to say, if I was in a cash lineup, I would go hit the button that says leave game and just go invest that in something else at this tournament. Like, there is no safety.
I know, it's such a weird.
That is true.
Like, if there's ever a week to not play cash games, I never play them anyway. But this would definitely be the week not to play one.
Yeah, but we got, I know you do too. We got people that still want to hear it. They love playing cash, and that's
do they? Who are these people? I mean,
We have a whole thread in our Discord that's cash game conversations from people. Me and Pat.
You should probably change the name of that in your Discord to Missionary Sex Lights Off.
Well, come on. Come on,
it is not really fun to talk about cash.
I will tell you this, like my double bagged missionary sex cash start of the week would be Willie Z, Connors, and Finau. Watch all three of them trunk slam. But that would be where I would start.
Yeah, you could go. I mean, even you could throw Willie Z into that mix. You could probably throw Hideki into that mix at this point, although he's never like the most trustworthy guy. He could WD on you, so you have to be careful. But yeah, I don't know. Like my mind isn't even geared towards a cash game at this point. So I'm most definitely the wrong guy to ask.
Didn't you used to talk cash like back in the day, 2015, 16, 17? Didn't you used to talk cash lineups on your show?
Yeah, I think we used to hit on it, but I just got like it's no fun.
What do you?
I'm not playing DraftKings to turn my 100 into 200. I'm not going to lie to you.
What do you miss the most about those days, Pat? And don't say that it was easier to win money.
Oh, it was easier to win.
I know you can't say that. Who do you miss the most?
I missed Tyrone Von Asfagen.
I knew you were going to say that.
$6,100 every week, and he would just make the cut.
I wanted to give you a chance to say that. I miss Bryce Mulder for some reason. I was a big Bryce Mulder guy.
Sean Stephanie was a big guy for me.
It was a high upside play always.
I kind of miss Bronson Burgoon.
He's in this field.
Yeah, he's here.
Is he really?
Yeah, or he was in the initial field. I don't think he actually survived like the alternates and stuff.
But he's been in a couple events this year.
Yeah, I guess
the ass man. I used to get my weekly dose of Mayo talking about the ass man. That was always fun. Your wife happens to hop in the car. Your podcast starts up automatically, and she's like, "What are you listening to?"
Well, you know, I mean, the legendary hatred for Jonas Blick started at the Players.
That is true. So, yeah, F that guy. All right, before we move on, 7K range, do want to pump up our friends at Swannies Golf. Check it out, swannies.co. Link is in the description of the podcast. You can check that out. It's TJ25, gets you 25% off your entire order. You can use that over and over again. They've got some tremendous stuff out for spring and summer. We've already talked about their Boom Island launch that just dropped last week. We got a preview of a lot of that stuff at the Waste Management a couple weeks ago. Tremendous clothing, local company, U.S. based, ships to U.S. and Canada, Mayo. So if you want any Swannies gear, we can hook you up. Stuff for you, stuff for the wife. We got stuff for the juniors. If you got a little junior junkie that wants a nice golf polo to wear to the club or whatever you guys are doing, great stuff over at Swannies. Check it out. TJ25 supporting us all year, and thanks to them for doing so. So click the link in the description, and let's get you guys looking good. All right, 7K range. Let's do the same thing. We think we've already talked about a few names here. Hoagie going to be pretty mega chalk. Tough to avoid, though, considering how good he's playing. Mayo mentioning Griot breaks my heart. I think Mitchell could get some love, but I also really like Keith Mitchell. I have a couple questions for you guys in this range. Mayo, Jake Knapp. Give me Jake Knapp's floor, like as bad as it could possibly be.
We just saw his floor, I think.
Yeah, but okay, were you a little impressed at the bounce back, though? Like yesterday, he shot even par.
Yeah, I wasn't. And even some of the time, I think when he made the 12, he birdied the next hole as well. So it's not, if it gets bad, it gets going real bad. So fun fact here. Cust actually made Jake Knapp his second strongest pick of the week on the bet show, which I was shocked about that. A, he knew who Jake Knapp was, and B, that he would be rolling with him here after he has been complaining to me that the PGA doesn't have any stars and these guys are all suck, and now he's picking Jake Knapp. Shocker that Cust has flip-flopped on something once again. But he made Zalatoris his pick to win, Knapp his second, and then Lucas Glover. So take that for what it's worth. But the approach continues to be strong, and that's what we want to hammer down on, right? We want to find these guys who are rating out the best in approach. I'm looking to pass 24 rounds right now. Knapp is 10th overall. You shorten that to 12th. He's 3rd overall. So I don't know if he can keep it out of the water. I like his prospects, but you just got to mention, what's his floor? We saw his floor. It's driving it into the water 8 times and missing the cut probably.
I mean, you look at that hole, though. Like I went back and looked at the shot by shot. I mean, he's hitting 320-yard bombs just slightly off of his target to slightly left of the target, not being able to carry where he wanted to carry it. Then he clubs down and sprays one right. He's hitting his 5th shot, right? Like, it's such a dumb hole. I hate that freaking hole. I hate the golf course. To me, seeing his bounce back, not just the next hole, but how he played yesterday. And I know he was first one out and he was, he played quickly and he was moving on. But to me, the bounce back is intriguing. I think he showed a lot and going toe-to-toe with Rory at Cognizant for those first 2 rounds. I mean, in terms of upside, I do think the players take some experience to get down, but it's not like a lot of these guys haven't played this golf course before. As a PGA Tour member, they can come out here and play whatever they want. Hopefully we can talk to Jake before Thursday and find out how much experience he actually has playing around this golf course, especially around this time of year. But I mean, I think Knapp's got top 20 potential. I don't know if I want to bet him to top 10 or count on him to win in DraftKings, but I think he's got top 20 upside.
I would agree with you. And Pat, just looking at the early ownership right now, like it's Hoagie and then it's everyone else in the 7K range. But he is one of the everyone else type guys who's splitting. So Griot, who we mentioned, Keith Mitchell, Alex Noren, Jake Knapp, Adam Scott, Chris Kirk. Like all these guys are going to be like 8 to 13%. They're not the completely unowned guys. Like no one's using JT Poston this week. Why not?
I was wondering about that too, because JT kind of seems like, I mean, we've walked with him on this golf course before. He seems pretty comfortable out there. I think the results have been relatively average. Looking at him real quick. I mean, he missed the cut 2 years in a row, but then he had a top 25 the year before that. His results recently though, have also been average.
He has 5 top 20s this year.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess when I'm just, look at the last couple of weeks, haven't been great.
But this is the same guy that at Phoenix, it was like 28 to 1. And people were like, my pick this week is JT Poston. Now we get him at a course. I mentioned Wyndham. He's played well at Heritage. He's played well at Sony. All these like shorter courses that fit his skill set. And people are like, nah. Same as Eric Cole. Eric Cole all of a sudden just like is the worst player. He's like 150 to 1 again. Like it took 2 weeks and he's gone. No one wants to use him anymore.
Well, I think one thing too with Poston was like the Cognizant, which he did make the cut and finish even, but man, his numbers were terrible, and it really throws off. You talk about throwing off a model; it certainly does the way he looked at the Cognizant based off how he hit the ball. Right,
a course where he's never played well, ever.
Yeah. So I think it makes us. You could make then the case that this could be a week to jump back on Poston, who I do agree is certainly not going to be very high owned. I think. Another guy that's, right there below him that nobody ever wants to play, but to me has a decent floor and a little bit higher ceiling is Adam Scott. I mean, Adam Scott to me is not a bad play at all in here. And he's going to be low end.
I'm with Pat. I like if you want your cash game guy, Adam Scott's the cash game guy.
I agree 100%. Not that I was going to be playing cash, but I think Adam Scott is a easier click in here, especially and he's not going to be high owned. We know that because nobody like that, but he's a great ball striker. He always has been. And if he could just putt a little bit decent on this course, then he'll be up there.
And look at where he has played well over the past few years. Like so many guys' games have shifted so much. Like I hope he showed up in Bermuda and played well. He almost won the Wyndham, and then he finished top 10 again at the Wyndham a year ago. So these shorter courses have been a little bit better for him. He was top 20 at Pebble Beach. He was top 10 in Phoenix. Like he's having a pretty decent year. I have no interest in betting him to win, but in order to come inside the top 20 and as a DraftKings play at this price, coming inside the top 20 would be pretty good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the API last week, he had all top 20s this season, or at least the last 5 events. I mean, that's not bad.
We got to get through these ranges here. So let me throw out my pivots and then let you guys react to a couple of names here, because I mean, I do like Hoagie. I don't know that I'll be able to jam in a lot of Hoagie. I'm jamming in a ton of Scheffler. Depends on the rest of the build. We'll see how it all shakes out. Maybe Hoagie's one of these guys that really, really steams and tomorrow's ownership projections are high. And then everybody goes, oh my God, I can't play 18% Hoagie. And then they pull back and who knows where it all comes out. But obviously Hoagie's in good form. He's going to be popular for a reason. He's doing the thing that you have to do the most here at TPC Sawgrass, which is hit incredible iron shots. That's what he's doing. But other than him, Mitchell is a guy I really like. I hope, although Mitchell is a guy who I typically will bounce off of when he approaches any form of chalk. Like I'd be way more comfortable playing a chalky Hoagie than I would a chalky Keith Mitchell. Emiliano Grillo is a guy that I'm definitely seeing trending nicely in some key areas, and especially iron play in the putter for Emiliano has continued to be solid. It looks like he's actually made a long-term change with the putter that's turned out nicely. I'm probably going to have a sprinkle of Cam Davis.
I'm with you.
Pat Perry knows that I'm very much a Cam Davis sucker. So you give me any signs of life for Cam D, and I'm usually in. Also a good record at places like Harbor Town. But
another guy who you would think plays all these long courses well, but sneakily plays par 70s and short par 72s really well.
Exactly. But my favorite pivot in this range is Alex Noren at $7,200. Kill me now, but I think I'm probably going to have Noren. Mayo. That was our so we actually organically invented a new segment a couple of weeks ago. We didn't plan it on purpose, but I was talking about betting Alex Noren for the first time in a while, and it felt like going into a really shady parking garage in a really bad part of town where you were worried you could get possibly abducted or something, and you need a buddy with you, and you got to have a buddy system to take on Noren's parking deck. And so the rape whistle buddy bet of the week was formed, and Alex Noren was the guy that we bet him together. We locked arms and we did it together. Eric Cole was that last week, so we did it together there with Eric Cole. But I've got leftover rape whistle buddy bet of the week residue from Noren, and I went back in.
Noren's going to be more owned than almost everyone in this range.
You think so? Alex Noren?
Yeah, people love playing Alex Noren.
They do? Why?
I think you're right.
Why did you bet him 2 weeks ago?
I'm just telling
you.
He
was top 10. It almost worked.
There you go. It almost worked. And play him again this week when he's not going to be 20% owned, but to say he's like, as a pivot, like he's going to be owned.
You think he's going to be owned more than Jaeger and EVR?
Maybe not EVR, but more than Jaeger. Probably right around Knapp, more than Seabez, probably more than Grillo, right around Mitchell, less than Hadwin, more than Hadwin, way more. No one's playing Fowler at all, like 0%.
Pat, I don't know. I mean, I can't wait to see what that shakes out to look like. I can't believe that.
I mean, look, he makes a lot. He's made a lot of cuts this year. If you're a model stats guy,
he's been around a long time, and he has hurt a lot of people over the years. My guy,
and they keep going back to him. It's just like no matter what your ownership projections tell you that Tommy Fleetwood is going to be owned, he's going to be owned more than that. Noren's in that same bucket.
Oof. Jeez. Well,
that's a good comparison. I would.
He's not a guy I will play at any form of chalk. Like I would if Jaeger or Knapp are lower than him, there's no way EVR is lower than him. No way.
No, I would agree with you. EVR will be higher.
I agree with that too.
But those guys that you just mentioned, like Cam Davis is really the one, right? He's the one no one's really going to play and probably should in this range.
Well, if
I agree there.
Him up, I don't know. We might be in trouble. All right, man. I can't wait to see the projections and then the actual ownership come out on Thursday on Noren. That might be an eye opener for me. Who knows? Maybe there's more people in the Noren parking deck than I thought.
Well, you have to remember the ranges as well too, because if people are going to jam Scheffler, they immediately fall into this range. So like 3 or 4 guys are going to be more owned in this range than you think, and I think he's going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I just felt like it would all be EVR and Jaeger. And even
I don't know why you think people love. Why do you think people love Jaeger so much?
Because he's like Mr. Consistent. That's what they love about him. He's been extremely consistent.
I mean, he came 40. He blew it last week after he was inside like the top 5 going into the weekend. He missed the cut the week before. 71st at Pebble Beach. Like you put him up against. I mean, now he's starting to play in some of the elevated events, and he's been very bad.
Yeah, but they'll see the putting. They'll be like, "Oh, it was a weird, bad putting week. The ball striking's been okay. It's been solid. He's gained some distance. He's making a bunch of cuts. He's got a high floor. Like they probably haven't been hurt by him the same way they've been hurt by Noren in the past." And that's what I was saying too. Is like people also in the DFS community, to me, seem to really believe Højgaard is like maybe not the second coming, that would be Ludwig or maybe Minwoo, but like the fourth coming in terms of a new generational player. So like he's going to get something.
Yeah, I think people pump the brakes a little bit on him at this course, just where we've never seen him in this situation. But I'm one of the people who's in on like both Højgaards, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think that's, if you're playing to win a GPP, like you need to play that upside, right? Like I talked about with Morikawa and Thomas, they have that one skill that can be better than everyone else in the field, and they consistently do it. When you think about like guys in this range, like you will probably profit more in the long run, like just on a week-to-week basis, like quote unquote min cashing with Justin Rose or Denny McCarthy over Højgaard. But if you're going to ask me like one of those three guys wins this week, it would be Højgaard. Like if you ask me next year, who's out of those three guys whose price might be $9,500, the answer is Højgaard. It might not be, and he might be $6,400 because he might secretly suck. But at least you see that potential in the upward trajectory for him, where the other two were just kind of like, yeah, of course they're 7,000. That's where they should be. 71 doesn't feel right for Højgaard. It feels like it should be way more and way less.
Yeah.
Pat, any last names here in the 7K range for you?
No, I think I'm good. I am ready to move on to the 6K range, of which I do have several in here that I'm a big fan of.
All right, we've already talked about Doug Gim, Nick Taylor, Andrew Novak being early steamed in the betting markets, very likely to be chalk. It makes a lot of sense. They're checking a lot of boxes. So other than that, Pat Perry, who are your favorite pivots here in the 6K range?
Well, I mean, we have to look at Machu.
I bet him.
Machu Pavan. I mean,
he was just so sweet on Twitter this week too, when he was like apologizing or talking about it.
It was great.
And he just like made all these fans, all the DFS and betting community were like, "Oh, we love you, Machu." Like he was like, "Oh, it was a struggle today. Tomorrow." It's like he's writing a letter to his long lost love overseas at war or something.
Yeah, but look, the guy's just been great. I mean, regardless of these being, the first time he's playing these golf courses, he still just continues to be solid. I think it's because he's a really good player. I mean, when you see guys consistently week in and week out, when they kind of burst on the scene like he did at the Farmers, but then back it up with a good week, then back it up again in Florida, where people are like, well, I don't know if I really want to, be on Machu because he's never played this course. It doesn't matter. He's just a good player. So I do like him. And then we switch over to a guy who I cannot stand to play, but I do feel like there's, a few reasons to play him. And he certainly has a ton of history out here because he's been on this, been on tour forever. And that's Billy Horschel. I think Billy Horschel is a guy that is a solid 6K range play that, certainly can play well in a golf course like this. He's coming off a top 10 at the Honda, where I felt like nobody really was playing him. His ownership is going to be low. I mean, in general, across the board, when it comes to stats, there's not a ton of things that he does, terrible. I mean, they all, he's good in par 5 scoring. He's good in bogey avoidance. He's a decent putter, even though it looks really, really crazy. His ball striking's been pretty good, so I think that Billy Horschel makes a lot of sense here at 6,600.
I completely agree. I like Horschel. So I really think it's so almost like how Hoagie in the 7K range is way above everyone. It appears like Doug Gim, the Gim Reaper, my guy, is going to be that guy.
Can you believe we've come this far, Mayo?
I know.
You're Gim Reaper boy.
It's funny that these guys, all these losers that I always end up liking, turn out to be really good eventually after I'm well off them.
remember a couple years ago, like he legitimately could have won the Players. I remember watching on Sunday going, is Doug Gim going to win the Players right now? Like I kept having to say it out loud. It was nuts.
I mean, this is the best form he's ever had in his career right now.
It is.
So
how much?
That's probably your chalk bomb of the week.
How much chalk is too chalk, Doug Gim?
I mean, he's early projections have him at 17% ownership.
Goo. Okay, who else do you like then?
So, I mean, what do you do with Nick Taylor?
I mean, I think Nick Taylor is getting a lot of steam for the for the Waste Management win. Obviously, did play solid at API and has a ton of experience around here. He's never really put it together on the greens, I guess, to like give him these spike finishes. I don't mind it. I'm not like obsessed with it. I would almost rather bet him outright and then forget him in DFS, honestly.
That's interesting. I might be on the same wavelength as you here. I actually I had Pavon and Horschel both highlighted, and I bet Pavon at 125 to 1, and I also bet Austin Eckroat at 175 to 1. Why is this any different than 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
he's hitting his
agree.
irons great.
Yeah.
Dude can kind of putt, and he hits every fairway. Like, he's not going to win a long drive contest, but he should keep the ball dry, if anything.
Good in the wind too. I mean, you can't be an Oklahoma State kid and not be good in the wind. I just have to believe that that's true.
I said the same thing last week in the API. I did not jump off of him just because of the win at the Honda.
And gained a bunch of strokes on approach last week.
Yeah.
You guys have mentioned a lot of names I like, and I think there are a lot of names in this range to be liked, but you've not mentioned a few of my favorites. I mean,
well, at the very bottom, I like Pendrith and Kevin Yu.
Still haven't mentioned one of my favorites.
All right, go for it.
You can't count Novak because I thought that was part of the
No.
Okay.
I like Davis Thompson here. PJ West connection with Davis Thompson.
Okay, so question here for you, because I was noticing this, like, in terms of the ownership projections, people like Davis Thompson. Why?
I don't know. I mean, he's 49th in my model, which isn't amazing, but it's pretty good for $6,100. It feels solid. We know him a little bit personally, got to talk to him a little bit. We've interviewed him a couple times. He's a nice kid, good kid. He went to Georgia. So we are probably biased there with DT. So I don't know, but I mean, 2 years in a row, he's had good performances at PGA West. Good at the waste management, like another comparable, especially around the green, on and around the green golf course. Approach play can be extremely consistent. He is a bomber, and that's going to be neutered a little bit here, but I don't know. I think he's a good price at $6,100. I mean, this kid went toe to toe with John Rahm a year ago.
John Rahm, guy who can't close on the Live Tour.
Stop.
He can't. I mean, he's been in contention every week and blows it.
Yeah, this is true. But he's running. I mean, when you run into Joaquin Niemann every week, it's tough sledding uphill.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, #1 player in the world, Joaquin Niemann.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but here, okay, I have to ask you this about Liv, because ranking Niemann, like, as he pertains to the world rankings right now, is really difficult of how good he is. So I don't understand how Niemann could be a top 5 player in the world.
He's not,
as some people are saying. Yet so is John Rahm, who gets beat every week by this guy. But so is Brooks, and so is Bryson.
Well, it's because I think if I'm thinking about it, you're thinking about a little bit more long term, and you're also thinking about major championship contenders, and Niemann should be a major championship contender, and he's really, to my memory, which I've already said is terrible, has not been a great he's kind of underperformed in majors, but he's freaking, I mean, can the kid drive yet? He's still young as hell. So it's a small sample size, he's young, and he seems to be, I mean, it is possible that a guy could be improving and evolving in his golf career at his age, even though he's on Live. I do think that's possible. I don't think he's a top 5 player in the world. I think it's hard to make the argument he's a top 10 player in the world.
And that's where I think he is. I think he's like fringy top 10. But if you had to ask me, the Live guys I would feel the best about in majors, it's still Rahm, Brooks, DJ. Cam, and DJ, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree there.
I agree. All right. I got to get out these last 2 names in the 6K range. I love Aaron Rye and I love Bo Hostler. What do you feel when I say those names?
Hostler makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, come on, man. Hop on the Hostler bandwagon. I've been on it all year. He's solid, dude. I think we could be witnessing a level up in Bo Hostler. I've been talking about it. The ball striking's gotten better. It's been more consistent. The short game's been good. I think Hostler's kind of a different player than the Bo Hostler we've known for the last few years.
I could see it.
What is a level up for Hostler? Like, he gets a 5th place finish?
Dude, that would be tremendous. A 5th place finish at the.
I know. I'm just saying. That's what I'm asking. Like, what is the level up?
I feel like pure upside for Bo Hostler is to have like a good Billy Horschel year, which would be excellent. But that would be like absolute upside for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but that's the next level. I'm not, I don't know if
that's not the next level. That's the ultimate level for him.
That's the ultimate.
I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know. I'm kind of a Hostler guy though. And then Aaron Rye just, strikes me as a guy who's going to check a lot of boxes with the irons. Had a good finish here last year, and I think his first attempt has shown some form even in, weak fields, but I don't know. Aaron Rye intrigues me a little bit as a nice Novak pivot potentially.
Yeah, I'm seeing, let's see, Ryan Novak right around the same right now. They're like those two and Eckroat are kind of the popular ones in that mid 6.
I haven't looked at any ownership projections yet.
Yeah, probably
I
for
mean,
the best.
prices just came out. All right, let's get to this 5K range draft situation. Let's this is tough sledding down here. So let's do we'll just do 2 picks each. We'll go snake draft. We'll let Mayo start. Pat, you can follow up after Mayo. We'll try to pick 6 good golfers in the 5K range. Pat, if you had your first pick, tell us who it is.
Oh my God.
I know it's ugly down here.
It's not great, but there's a bunch of names that I like.
By the way, Pat, back-to-back weeks, we had a good draft last week in the 6K range. We had T8, T12, T25, 3 guys. So we're hot right now. Mayo, we got to keep it going.
I'm just going to stick with my guy who just kind of plays well every week. I like him at Pete Dye courses. I like him at short courses, and I'm just going to take Carson Young.
Love it. I'm a big Carson Young guy.
Okay.
Good mustache on him too.
There's a couple of guys right next to each other that I'm looking at here, but I'm gonna go with the form here. Come off a top 10 and a top 30. Chan Kim.
4chan.
Oof. I didn't see that coming. Chan Kim. All right, I got both my picks right here. Dude, has anybody noticed that the last couple of weeks is potentially is Seamus Power almost like is he coming out of the grave a little bit lately? Have you guys seen this with Seamus?
So I almost took him as my first pick here, but I don't know. It kind of feels like fool's gold a little bit.
I mean, it's a lot of short game. It's a lot of strokes gained around the green here, but he kind of, I don't know. He's enticing to me. I think I'm going to take Seamus. I'm taking Seamus.
Okay.
With the first pick. With the second pick, I'm tempted to go Party Marty, actually, who's been playing nicely. But I'm not. I'm going to go with a guy that I think has some real upside. He's won in Florida before. And when he pops, the thing that pops for him is the irons. And we talked about him last week a good bit. I'm going with Taylor Moore.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Interesting about Taylor Moore, because I was digging into him, and I kind of agree with you. And I don't know why this is the case. And again, you guys understand like course architecture and layouts better than I do.
No, we don't.
But is there anything as a crossover with Detroit in this place? Just because like weird guys just play. Maybe it's strength of field where the good guys at the players just do well there as well. But like, even someone like Hadwin, who generally plays really well at Sawgrass, was in the playoff with Morikawa and former Players Champion Ricky last year. Bryson's obviously come second. He ended up winning there. Pendrith has played that course really well. He's played Sawgrass really well. Taylor Moore has played Detroit really well too.
In Detroit, is Detroit a Donald Ross course?
It is.
I love Donald Ross courses. I hate Pete Dye courses. I don't know. I'm not an architecture nerd, so I don't know. But that isn't. I did not think that's the correlation you were going to bring up. I don't know. I have to dig into that.
Yeah, it was just I noticed the names. I have no real basis on that. It's just a few names. And Cam Davis had won there. He's played well here too. So it could be nothing. It could be something.
And Cam Davis played well at Harbortown.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll have Taylor defending next week, right, at the Valspar.
Yeah.
So, kind of another difficult, Bermuda golf course. I think it makes sense. I was all about some Taylor Moore last week as a long shot too. Speaking of long shots, this one's a real long shot, but he really is. He's checking some boxes for me, DB. He's in the top 12 in my model in driving accuracy, top 10. Scrambling from the sand. He is number 1 in bogey avoidance, and this is over the last, I think I did maybe 16 to 20 rounds. Coming off of a 13th in Mexico, 16th at the Honda. He did play Puerto Rico last week. He made the cut. I think he was 40 something. Ben Silverman.
Ooh.
Jeff's neighbor.
Nice.
What?
Yeah, well, just he's a Canadian Jewish guy from Toronto, so I assume he knows Feinberg.
Nice. Okay. All right. Ben Silverman. I didn't see that coming. Good reach for you there, Pat. All right, Mayo, finish us up. So you have Carson Young on the on the team.
So I ran some simulations of this tournament, and for this guy has no form. I have no idea why it's spitting him out. So I'm not going to draft him. I just want to make mention that SH Kim, just for whatever reason, looks good here. Can I go to Bobby Mack? Like, can the guy make a putt?
Oh dear.
Jeez.
How
did he get in?
He can't putt.
He can't. I don't know. I mean, we have said bad putters can play well at Sawgrass. That's for sure. I was all over Bobby Mack in the early 2024. I was ready to get on Bobby Mack, and then it's been tough outside of a couple tournaments. But if you want to take him, you can take him. Yeah,
the tee to green's just been so good. Even in Puerto Rico, watching him last week, it's like, oh, he's smashing it. No, he sucks because he can't putt. The other one I wanted to bring up is, what do we do with Nick Dunlap?
Your PJ West winner?
Yeah, maybe just, he's getting acclimated to the tour. He did make the cut at Honda. Like, it hasn't been good since he won, but it's not maybe he's playing against great fields. He played 3 elevated events. Like, of course he's not going to be great in those.
Why is he losing so many strokes off the tee? It's not distance, is it? Is it just his accuracy? That would concern me.
Yeah, it is. Like I got Hubbard down here. KH Lee finally showed life at Honda, which was nice to see. But
in your models relative to people around him, where does Peter Malnati rank in your model?
Hopefully dead last. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, jeez.
He actually kind of pops in mine a little bit.
I'm just going to go with my gut on this one and just see someone who's, the approach play is getting a little bit better, albeit somewhat inconsistent. We know he can putt. I'll take Chesson Hadley.
Yep, I like that.
I like it. I almost went there. He was definitely highlighted.
He was on the short list. All right, so Mayo got Carson Young and Chesson Hadley. Pat Perry got Chan Kim and Toronto Jewish Canadian Ben Silverman. And I got Seamus Power and Taylor Moore. Those are your 5K draft picks. Pat Mayo, thank you so much for hopping on the Tour Junkies podcast. We appreciate you, man. Appreciate what you do in the space. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate that you're shaking things up and bringing up some fun new contests on Underdog. That's exciting. And thanks for coming on the show. Well, I'm sure it won't be the last this year. We'll get together.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for having. Let's have a great week. May your screens be green for the Players Championship. We will see you live on site at TPC Sawgrass. See you out.